right, guys, very excited to be joined by Lightning Mike Angove ahead of a huge year for his team in CKB. So many great fighters, so many big fights. What a massive year ahead of us indeed. And he is kind enough to hang his hoodie over the window of his car to improve the lighting for this interview. He is a dedicated Submission Radio.
Highly professional production and media.
Mike, let me tell you, man, the year is just kicking off, but you guys have some big fights locked in. First off, we're not far from Izzy returning in Saudi. Tell me, how's the camp been? How's the team been? And how are you feeling about this big fight right around the corner?
I guess first off, Imavov's clear and present danger. He's a better version of the guy that oh God, I've just had a brain fade. He's a better version than the guy that lost to Sean Strickland. And Strickland fights a very pressure-orientated fight, so Imavov will have learned from that. You know, he got great hands, great timing, controls the tempo of the fight really well. And I expect he will probably, you know, look to do something similar to what Duplessis did, which is look for an opportunity to get to the back. Everyone all of a sudden will figure that that's a weakness. So, you know, that is a really challenging fight against a young lion coming up, and it's a really critical fight when you think about, you know, Izzy's had a loss against Pereira. He won that one back, then he's lost to Strickland and Duplessis. He's never been on a run that bad in his career. So, you know, this is a massive fight for him.
How'd you guys end up with Imavov anyway? Because I know a lot of people are talking about Caio Borralho potentially being the opponent. There are a few names floating around. How'd you end up with Imavov?
Hey, look, we're company guys, and we just do what the company wants, you know. Look, I mean, Caio Borralho, southpaw, good grappling game, smart, high fight IQ. You know, Imavov comes from a great gym. You know, smart, young, up and coming, height, fight IQ. You know, tomato. Any fight at this level is incredibly dangerous. So we just take what's put in front of us, essentially. You know, and you have to go through the fire if you are going to re-challenge for the title, which is what we ultimately want to do.
Yeah, that's interesting, man, because this is your first fight without any title, you know, involved in it since 2019 in Anderson Silva with Izzy. So it's a bit of a different setup. How does, in a way, is it kind of cool just to be going into this fight without having to think about titles or title defenses or anything like that? Or is it kind of similar because you guys are still the main event? It's still a huge fight, you know. It's still got massive implications, like you said. How does it feel for you guys?
It doesn't feel any different. It's a 5-round fight. It's at the top of the card. If you don't win this fight, then you have to question, you know, where you're at with your career. And the clear and stated objective is that we want to regain the title for the third time. And in order to do that, you've got to knock off a couple of these young lions. So the pressure of being a title holder, and Israel has often said this, that's not really there. That never has been there. You know, it's the pressure of one man fighting another man in a main event and winning. That never really changes. You know, glittery jewelry around the waist, nice shiny gold gloves. It's nice. It brings a whole lot of trappings with it, but ultimately, we're just here to bash the other guy more than they bash us and go home and win.
So, okay, you mentioned titles. Obviously, with a win here, I could totally see Israel, you know, stepping in and fighting a Sean Strickland or a DDP, depending on who wins in Sydney shortly after his fight at UFC 312. But how do you see this whole ecosystem, I guess, with Khamzat in there as well? Like, if you guys win in Saudi and put on a dominant performance, do you think that's enough to get Izzy to the title shot straight away? Or do you think Khamzat gets this next shot against the winner of DDP and Strickland?
Look, I really don't know. That's crystal ball gazing. Obviously, we're we'd take that fight if it came up. Strickland Duplessis. They are very winnable fights, despite the fact we didn't win them. They are fights that we think we could win very well, very handily, particularly in the shape that Israel's currently in as well. There's been a lot of changes in terms of camp and approach and preparation. We can't crystal ball gaze on that. Khamzat is a real threat. Everyone knows you've got to get out of the first round with that guy. If you can't get out of the first round, if you can't get out of the way of those low-flying bullets around your ankles that he just will not let go, climb up your back and then crank your jaw, then you're in deep trouble. So he's a major danger. And he cut through Rob. He cut through Rob surprisingly easily. And Rob is a pretty damn good grappler. So, there's a lot of potential options, but none of them count if you don't get rid of Imavov. And, that's kind of where we're at in terms of our thinking there.
Mm. If Khamzat lines up against Strickland or DDP, do you think he can become champion, or do you pick one of those guys against him?
I think Khamzat's gas tank, because he goes a million miles an hour right from the start, has been shown to be questionable on a couple of occasions, and that probably comes back to fight IQ as well. How to mix and measure your energy. But look, a little like Tyson, if your A game is so good that it just blasts through people, often you don't develop, those alternate strategies. I'm sure he's got smart people around him, and he's not, an unintelligent guy himself. So that's something he's obviously got to address. But in the fights where he's gone the distance with guys who have been successful grapplers, who's successful anti-wrestlers. And then he has started to look vulnerable on his feet, which is not saying he's not useful on his feet, but that's not where his strength lies. He's dangerous, he's athletic, he's powerful with the hands. But Kamaru Usman is not a great striker, per se. He's a solid MMA striker, but he's not a great striker. So you get him into deep water, say halfway through the second round, I think that's an interesting proposition. But you've got to survive that first. The guy's dangerous, and he's just brimming with fire, particularly early in the fight. And clearly, he's insanely strong. So, someone always looks invincible until you uncover the key weakness that brings out their vulnerabilities, and really we've only seen glimpses of that for Khamzat. So wait and see.
I know you mentioned his fight with Rob. Rob was visiting you guys. He was training with you guys. I saw there was a few fun videos on the Stylebender channel. You sort of spoke to it a little bit as well. What was it like having Robert Whittaker visit CKB and see him on the mats with Rob? I know you're a big Robert Whittaker fan, and a lot of us are as well. It must have been kind of cool to see those guys sort of train together and have him visit your gym.
Yeah, and I think, it's good to kind of let the ghosts of previous fights go by, And I remember Rob early on, he'd met Izzy before they were slated to fight, and Izzy's very chill one-on-one until you become an opponent. And then the fight persona comes on board, and Rob is not that way. Rob is what you see is what you get, like 100%. So I think, that caught Rob by surprise, because he's a very black and white, solid, unchangeable, very temperate character. That's who he is, right? Izzy's quite a different character, particularly when he puts on his fight hat. He puts on the fight persona. So to be able to sort of set that aside, and see the guys just training, having a laugh. Great having Rob back in the country of his birth. Like everything successful that's Australian, it obviously started in New Zealand, so good to have that acknowledged too, guys. Look, it was great to have him, man. Rob's part of a great team. He's a great guy. In many ways, he epitomises a lot of the values that Kiwis and Australians hold dear. He's humble. He's stoic. He's a great family man. He's the epitome of a team man. And he's a legend. So great to have him around the gym. Hope to have him around here again.
And the other thing is, a similarity is he's gotten it done with limited resources like yourselves as well. You guys built out your team in a country where the sport wasn't predominant. He did the same thing in Australia as well. I wonder, what do you think the future holds for Robert Whittaker? Like, I heard him talk about going up to 205. I actually think it would be great to see him up at 205. I think there's a lot of fun fights for him there. What do you think the future holds for Robert Whittaker, if you were to sort of guess, or where would you like to see him go next? Obviously, he mentioned he's got a small amount of time left until he sort of hangs up the gloves.
Yeah, well, look, Rob's a legend. He was looking pretty solid. He was a bloody solid block of a man when he was here.
Yeah, he's huge, isn't he? He's actually big outside of fight camp. Like, you're like, damn.
Yeah. But look, I don't know about 205 just because of the height attributes. I know he would make it difficult for a lot of guys there, just for his speed and his offbeat sort of fighting style. It's the question as to whether he could sort of hop around the outside the way he does as effectively against guys who are all Israel's height and bigger, and 10, 15 kilos heavier, very big men. I mean, a lot of those guys are walking around at 230, which is essentially, a mid-range heavyweight. So, that would be interesting. Yeah, sure, there's some fun fights. Yeah, he's going to be quicker than guys, but also, they had a lot harder up there as well. So there's some balance. But look, he's so multifaceted in his skills. He is an incredibly well-rounded mixed martial artist that I could see him doing well, but there's obviously challenges to dealing with men who are much bigger and much longer.
I know that Izzy himself went up to 205 for Jan. It was a close fight, but he wasn't able to get it done. Do you guys ever envision yourselves moving back up to 205 before it's all said and done and having another crack at the division? Or is it a situation where, Izzy's in this great shape, he's not having issues getting down to middleweight, he's got the second run in him, and it's likely, we just see him finish out his career at middleweight before it's all said and done?
Oh, look, I think we just get Imavov out of the way. There's some other goals there. It's nice to speculate about 205 and all the rest. But Israel's a guy who, basically, has a couple of snacks off and sits in the sauna for 5 minutes and plays some ping pong, and he makes weight at middleweight. So he's not a big middleweight. He's a very tall middleweight, but he's not a big middleweight. So, that's probably not on the radar at this point. But why would it be when we've got a legacy to establish here? And that legacy is really making your way back, becoming the first person to win the title 3 times. And fun fights later on in the career. You cross that bridge when you get there. But we've got a pretty big task ahead of us in Saudi. And I know that every rugby coach, every sporting coach says that we don't want to look beyond, the immediate opposition. But it's true. You can speculate on all the other stuff, but it's fluff if you don't win.
Is that a conversation you guys have had as a team about legacy and being the first person to do that? Is that something that's actually been spoken about and is sort of one of the new goals on this new run that he's on?
Those conversations always take place. You need a driver, not specifically about that, but you have to have a reason. You don't, if you're only fighting to get paid, then that's not a good enough reason to fight. If you don't have a prime-driven goal, then fighting's not for you, because ultimately, when it comes down to it, and you're in the last few few scarce of your gas tank, you're hurt and you're tired, you need something to drive you forward. You need that prime motivation. So whatever that is, it's got to be more than just turning up to get your name on a poster and getting paid.
Izzy looked great against DDP. Obviously, the fight didn't go his way and DDP beat him, but we saw the physical improvements. He looked very, very different to a few fights before that, where he was trying to do a push-up during an open workout, and it looked like he had an issue with just doing a simple push-up because of an injury. You mentioned he's in great shape here. What kind of Israel are we looking at? Because going into the DDP fight, the work that he did on his body and recovery and strength was obvious. How is he looking now, even compared to going into the DDP fight?
Oh, it's night and day.
Really?
Yeah, it's night and day. Night and day. This is physically a very different athletic specimen that you'll have in front of you. Israel had some changes to the DDP fight, but this is completely different, and it needs to be, because you have a different opponent with a different level of speed, a different level of striking sharpness, and a similar level in terms of his ability to take the back. So he needs to be in prime physical condition. We needed to, drive back the clock. Interesting, you noted that about the open workout in terms of what happened there before the Strickland fight. You can draw your own conclusions on that. It's very hard for a guy who's, only got one arm.
Yeah. Can't do a push-up. What can you expect? Hey, so let me ask you this. Is it more in terms of, this is the healthiest he's ever been, or is it more changes on the diet, more changes on the strength and conditioning, more changes on some of the different types of training going into this one?
I think if you take we've always had a scientific approach to things, but sometimes you need to revamp what you've done in order to move forward. The light bulb was a great invention, 100 odd years ago, but now there's much brighter light bulbs. So we had to have a look at things in terms of S&C. We had to have a look at things of how we structured training. We had to have a look at things in terms of what we do internally as a team, and that is what being at the elite level is about. It's about making judgment calls. It's about making changes where changes are necessary, ideally before you have to. But obviously, when you've lost a couple of fights, you look very closely at that. And, as an athlete, if you make that commitment to keep going, well, you have to make some changes, because you can't keep, bashing your head against the same wall and expect a different result. So, we've found plenty of areas where we can improve on those minor percentages, and hopefully we'll see that come to fruition.
Before we move on to this fight, obviously everybody, envisions a knockout or a submission, but this version of Izzy against this young lion and Imavov, you mentioned he's tough and, he's got some great striking and overall skills here. He's going to try to potentially get to Izzy's back, this and that. How do you actually, when you envision how this fight plays out, knowing both guys and the skill levels going in here, how do you think it actually plays out in Saudi? Is there a particular sequence that you see this fight going?
Look, generally speaking, without saying too much, both Izzy and Imavov like to control the distance. They like to control the range, and they are very good at using their ability to control the tempo of a fight to limit their, to be conservative and very accurate with their output. You saw Imavov was, he wasn't able to do that against Sean Strickland. He couldn't control the rhythm. He couldn't keep the guy off him, going backwards. So You know, and you saw Izzy forced backwards against Sean Strickland. So both of those guys will have watched tape on that, right? And they'll understand that they need to maintain a very high tempo. But I think the first battle with those guys is going to be who's quickest, who's got the best range, you know, who can dictate the tempo. And then the next battle will be, you know, once that's established, and if someone's got a clear and present advantage, it's like, okay, well, what's plan B? What do you do next? And obviously we've got a pretty good plan B.
All right, guys, it's time for a new year and a new you, thanks to our friends at MANSCAPED. Have you sorted all the best products to get you looking good downstairs and all over your body in 2025? Performance Package 5.0 Ultra by MANSCAPED is your secret weapon for stepping into 2025 sharp, clean, and confident. Don't be the guy that rolls into January looking like you just emerged from hibernation. Let the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, the Weed Whacker 2.0 handle your overgrowth so you can focus on leveling up. Start 2025 with precision, because the only thing that should be growing this year is your success and not your scruff. Join the 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Use the code word submission now. Keep this show going. Get 20% off and free shipping today. Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the all-in-one grooming kit. Of course, I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is the best tool you could have. It also comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer. Full aftercare, which helps you treat yourself right with the crop soother and the crop preserver. Keeps you fresh and comfortable and confident, so you're always ready to move forward. And you get some free gift. Kick off the year with a bonus that elevates your routine. The Boxers 2.0, which I love to wear. They're one of the most comfortable boxers you can wear. And the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag, which I take with me everywhere I go. Manscaped has a 30-day money-back guarantee as well, so you can try it risk-free right now. Use the code word submission. Go right now, 20% off and free shipping. And I just want to talk to you guys about SAILY as well. SAILY is an unbelievable app that's going to change the game forever when it comes to travel, and you want to be covered with your phone. Forget lining up at airports and having to get a new SIM, taking your SIM out, keeping it in a little baggie, making sure you don't lose it. Forget all of that. SAILY has you sorted. All you got to do is download the app, choose the amount that you want to spend, what country you want to go to, and boom, like that, you are sorted. I just went to New Zealand. I was absolutely covered. I didn't want to spend the $10 or $20 or $30 a day that I was going to have to spend because of my provider. I put in an amount. It had me covered the entire time, and I even still have data left over because it was so smooth and easy. One of the things I love about SAILY as well that you may not realize is it actually comes with an ad blocker. So if you are watching videos or doing stuff on the internet, why waste your data on ads? The ad blocker has you sorted, and it comes with web protection as well. You know, malware on your device is the last thing you need on your travels, and SAILY gets you sorted and protected too. So why not jump on right now, use the code word submission, get 15% off. All you gotta do is download the app, choose your destination, where you wanna go, the amount of money you wanna spend, activate it on your phone without having to take out your SIM card, without having to line up at airports, without having to re-sign different documents. SAILY has you sorted, whether you need a little bit of data or a lot of data, whatever your plan is, SAILY has you covered wherever you go in the world. Go on right now, check out the app. It's the most seamless and easiest process when it comes to travel eSIMs that you can experience. Use the code word submission, 15% off. Jump on right now. What are you waiting for? Grab your SAILY today. If you're traveling tomorrow, next month, get it sorted today. Use the code word submission while it's still active. It's 15% off. SAILY.com/submission gets you sorted. Try it today, whether it's a lot of data, small amount of data. SAILY has you sorted. Easy, seamless, highly recommended. Now back to the program. Quickly, before I let you go, Dan Hooker, Justin Gaethje, official UFC 313. How happy are you that this thing is official? I know you guys were waiting on word from the UFC for a while. Dan was on this show, mentioned he didn't even realize this thing was official until he saw it himself on social media when it was announced. What was your reaction when you saw, all right, this is the official next fight for Dan?
It was a good fight, isn't it? You know, you've got Gaethje, who obviously got chinned in the fight against Holloway. You know, he needs a win. I think it's against a durable guy like Dan. The UFC thinks that's both a very good fight. But I also suspect that they wouldn't mind Gaethje taking it from a marketing point of view. You know, it was quite it was on the cards, but the actual date makes it a relatively short notice fight. 6 to 7 weeks. That's not a long time.
And Dan's expecting his baby as well during that time. And he told me that with the Edson Barbosa fight, when he had his first, baby girl, that was something hard to deal with. So it's not the greatest timing, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what we do. We're professional athletes, and we knew it was on the cards. So, we're not naive. I'm just observing the fact that, that date was probably not the originally expected date. So it comes up pretty quickly. People think that 8 weeks is a long time. Weeks is the bare minimum for a fight camp in terms of actual proper preparation. But as I say, we were ready in terms of our own preparation for that. Just found it interesting that was put on in that time frame. Dan's a company man. He always has been. He fought Dustin Poirier, having trained in his garage for the majority of his fight camp. So, he's not bothered by things like that. But back to the fight in itself, it's interesting. Dan's a very long, lanky, accurate guy who can really do some damage from the outside and can really collect you with knees as you come into the inside. He also punches hard. And that's before you get to talking about his durability. But Gaethje's a guy who needs to get inside and needs to jab to the body and come over the top with his right hand. He's another one with a very clever coach in Whitman, Trevor Whitman. He makes some great calls in the corner. So, it's an intriguing fight. And to be honest, it's one of those fights that, I could quite easily see Dan running away with that fight, to be honest. Similarly, if Gaethje gets on the inside and is able to force his will, he's equally dangerous when he's allowed to be in his zone. So the battle is which one of those two will be able to carry their own fight, be able to imprint their own game plan and their own style, which I think is really critical in this fight.
I can't wait for this fight. Obviously, the division's wide open, right? Arman pulled out. Dana said he's not getting the title shot next. Islam needs an opponent. If Dan goes in here, puts on an impressive fight with Justin Gaethje, you think that can get him the title shot next?
Well, Moicano got a title shot, didn't
he? Yep.
Yeah, so look, all you can do is win. And Dan has always stated that he wanted to, have a shot at the title. So we beat Gaethje. We've beat a guy who's previously challenged for the title. And it puts us up there. The only drawback was obviously we've already fought Islam. But again, that did not have the best of preparation by any stretch.
Yeah.
So Dan would love to have a chance to, avenge that, and Islam now, pound for pound, number one, and there's not many guys who are in that conversation there that haven't already had, cracks at the cherry. So, great opportunity for Dan, but yeah, let's get Gaethje out of the way first and see where we go from there. And obviously, Poirier is making noises about coming up to fight Islam as well. So, we will just win this fight. It's a tough fight. It's a great stylistic fight. And then, all you can do is put yourself in line. You put yourself in the consideration set. You put yourself in front of the matchmakers. And if it's a great win, you really thrust yourself in there and you make a compelling case.
Yeah, Poirier, he's wanting to fight Charles Oliveira next, but of course he committed to a fight with Alex Volkanovski in the octagon. So the whole thing is a bit of a mess. Let me ask you this. Obviously, the preparation for Islam was terrible. You guys obviously respect Islam. Everybody does. And everyone's impressed with what he's been able to do in there. But with a proper training camp and for you guys to really figure out the best game plan and the best preparation for Islam, how different do you think a rematch would look for Dan and Islam?
Well, it would look a hell of a lot better than a fight with very little preparation. than a fight without a really solid game plan, and then a fight without the ideal kinds of sparring partners. Look, you're talking about a guy who's number one pound for pound in the world, who got slapped a couple of times against Moicano. Moicano, look, Islam is a very solid striker. He's got better, but the longer the stand-up exchanges occur, the more you see the weaknesses appear in his game. So if you can keep him up, you can expose some holes. But he's also that guy who, and he did it against Moicano. He got touched a couple of times, and that was enough, I think, for him to go, all right, I'm going for a takedown. Let's get you out of here ASAP. And pretty much he did. It was like bang, transition, bang, takedown, bang, wrist dust, bang, over.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to resist that. But I can tell you one thing for sure is that Dan won't be throwing a low kick to the outside leg of a southpaw to be ankle picked and taken down in the first 30 or 40 seconds. That's definitely not something that's going to happen.
I know you mentioned Topuria before, so I got to ask Alex Volkanovski. I think he's still at the gym training with you guys. Do you have any official word on what's next for him? What do you want to see next from him? Obviously, we want to see a title involved in the picture, but do you think it's going to be this Topuria rematch, or do you think they're going to be putting someone else up to potentially do an interim title? Or
Topuria has said something along the lines of it's going to take him 5 or 6 months to lose weight, to fight at that weight again. So that sounds to me like he doesn't really have any plan in sight for fighting Volk again, not in the near future. So without crystal ball gazing, because we don't know, but it doesn't sound like Topuria is putting himself in line for that. So with that being the case, Volk needs to go out and bash up someone else in that division, to put himself back in line. Remembering too that Volk's obviously coming off, 2 rather nasty losses. Although I have to say, with regard to the second Islam fight, if you come off the couch with almost no camp and 10 days notice, when you're naturally a smaller guy and you have to fight a southpaw, that is a very, very, very difficult ask. So that loss, you've always got to put an asterisk on it. Alex never would, but I would 100%. He got caught drifting against the cage against the left-hander, which is something that doesn't happen in the same way if you have a full camp working with good southpaws who can high kick with the left leg. So, I just put an asterisk by that loss. But Topuria, he created his knockout beautifully. So, it'd be good to see Alex, knock off someone else, get another notch under his belt before we go back to Topuria. That's just my personal opinion.
All right, man. Well, listen, big fights ahead for your team. Obviously, Carlos Ulberg, we're excited to see KK of France and what he's able to do this year. All sorts of fighters, even at UFC 312. You got Kev on the card. Guys,
we've also got Rong Zhu on the card there as well. So we've got Team France and Team China coming out of City Kickboxing. So
you guys are on the world. You guys are on the world. And if you guys want to keep up to date with what Mike's up to, of course, follow the man at Lightning_Mike_MMA. A lot of broadcasting work as well coming up and breakdowns. Mike, I really appreciate you, man. Best of luck in Saudi with Izzy. What a way to kick off things as well with massive, massive fights. And I hope to see you in Sydney. Will you be in Sydney in the corner, Kev?
Yeah, no, we'll be cornering Kev and Rong Zhu over there, who's one of the athletes who's come over from the Shanghai PI. So yeah, no, it's ironic that we don't actually have any of our Kiwis on the cards. But hey, we'll take our Frenchmen and our Chinamen, and we will get across there and put on a great performance.
Love it. City Kickboxing Worldwide. Best of luck, Mike. Thanks so much for joining me, man. I appreciate you.
Cheers, guys.